Hey beauty, in this episode I talk about trusting God. I talk about what's been going on these past few weeks, what God has been showing me about trusting Him. I talk about a little bit about this book that I'm almost ready to publish, what's been going on there. Before I get into the show, I just wanted to read you a review. It says, so much encouragement in this podcast. I love Alexandra's voice. It is so soothing. I get so much encouragement listening to this podcast, especially the episode on shame. Thank you so much for reminding me that Jesus already took care of my past and present sins, including shame. I'm working in the consciousness of choosing God's truth in Romans 8:1 instead of subjecting myself to becoming a slave to shame and guilt. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for encouraging me. This is from Chichi Ukomadu from Start That Business podcast. Thank you so much, Chichi, for leaving this wonderful review. If you have not left me a review and you enjoy this podcast, I really hope that you will leave me a review. It will help others find this podcast. So you can go on iTunes. If you don't have an iPhone, you would have to, unfortunately, download the app onto your desktop, scroll to the bottom where it says write a review in purple letters, and leave me a written review. I would appreciate that so much. With all that being said, let's get into the show. Welcome to Her Holistic Healing. Do you want more energy and less anxiety so that you can do all the things? Are you searching for meal ideas, essential oils, and other holistic treatments? Do you wish you could know which direction to take with your health so that you could finally feel better? Hey, I'm Alexandra. I love Jesus. I'm a wife, mom of 3, and registered nurse with years of experience in clinical research. I also wanted more energy so that I could have more fun and keep up with my growing child. I too was confused about all the different diet and treatment options. I too wanted to wake up every day and feel good, but I felt anxious because I couldn't solve the mystery of my health. Until God showed me that He is the source of true healing. In this podcast, you will learn holistic treatments and Bible truths that will lead you to the peace, joy, and freedom that you have been hoping for. So what do you say we take a break from the mind-numbing humdrum busyness? Let's rest and let God be our healer and helper. In 2020, God gave me an idea for a book. Since then, the overall message of the book has changed. A few months ago, I feel like I finished the book, but it was only 14,000 words long, which is pretty short for a nonfiction book. But I just wanted to get it published because I've had this idea since 2020, so I just wanted to get it out there. So I started looking for editors, but I just didn't feel peace about moving forward with an editor yet. I was so grateful that I didn't hire anyone yet, because in the past few weeks, God gave me more things to write. He gave me 6,000 more words for this book. So the book is up to about 20,000 words now, which is still pretty short, but it's not super short like it was before. So I was super excited when I felt like I was done. So I started looking for editors again, and I was just so excited to be done, but I was also wondering where the funds would come from, because I decided to self-publish, and when you do that, you have to pay for your own editor and your own book cover designer and all of those things. So I was wondering where the money was going to come from, because we've had so many renovations done with our house and a lot of unexpected expenses, so we don't really have a lot of money lying around to just publish a book like that. So I was wondering where the money was going to come from, but I was determined to trust in God, because the past couple weeks, a few weeks prior to me finishing the book, I feel like a few things have happened where I just got really flustered and anxious, but everything turned out really well. So I was determined to trust God when it came to him providing the funds to get this book published. And as I paid the bills that day, usually I would get really anxious and irritated and agitated because I feel like so many unexpected bills come up, so it's hard to stick to our budget. I was telling a few people before that I feel like back in 2010, when my husband and I first got married, whenever we would have unexpected bills, it would be like $100 here, $100 there, hundreds of dollars. But now with 3 kids and a house, I feel like unexpected expenses usually add up to like $1,000 or thousands of dollars. So as I was sitting down to pay the bills, I just really did not want to go through the same cycle that I go through whenever I pay the bills, like get agitated, sometimes to the point where my stomach hurts or I get a headache. This time I was like, no, I'm going to trust God. God will provide the funds for my book, and he will provide, even though things on my spreadsheet don't look the way that I want them to. I know that he will provide. So I finished with the bills, and then for whatever reason later at night I checked my bank account, and lo and behold, there was a lot of money in there that should not be in there. And it turns out that I got a bonus at work, which is really weird because I already got a bonus at work. So I went to check my pay stub, and yes, it was a bonus at work. God had provided the money to get the book published on the very same day that I finished it. I was just so excited about this, and I realized, man, how many times in my life have I gotten so flustered or so anxious or so angry or so annoyed, or I just haven't trusted God. And then I turn around and I find that there was nothing to be anxious about, or God blesses me with all these with a certain thing, and I don't even notice it a lot of times because I'm just busy getting flustered about the next thing. It made me think of this analogy of a couple dancing. I don't know if you like ballroom dancing or Latin dancing. I used to take dancing. I'm not the greatest dancer, but I love dancing, and whenever I would dance with a really good leader, I just felt so easy, and it was so much fun. And it's a lot of fun to watch dancers that are super talented and been dancing for so many years. And what makes them such great dancers? Well, part of it, is talent, part of it is practice, but also what makes them good is the leader knows how to lead. He's a good leader. And the follower is a good follower. She follows her partner. She trusts her partner. Imagine if the follower decides that she doesn't want to follow. The dance would it would be a disaster. Like, she would want to go her own way. It just wouldn't be graceful. It wouldn't be fun to watch. If God is our leader, like the lead dancer, and we're the follower, think about what our lives look like when we follow him and when we don't. When we follow him, or let's start with when we don't follow him. When we don't follow him, sometimes we go our own way, or we just hesitate, and we miss out on something. It's not the ideal thing, right? In contrast, when we are good followers of God, it turns into this beautiful dance. It's graceful and it flows. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you." This is, every episode I do is for you and for me. This is a reminder to me to trust God. I've been told that I'm a stubborn person. A lot of people in my family, I guess, at least some people in my family, we're like stubborn people. We like very tenacious. And the thought occurred to me, what if I used my stubbornness for something good? What if whenever any trial or situation that usually brought me anxiety or a negative emotion, instead of freaking out or something like that, instead of that, what if I was stubborn about trusting God? What if I was honest with God about what I'm feeling? Because we don't want to stuff our feelings, right? What if I told God, I'm frustrated, or I feel angry, or I feel sad, or I don't understand? But after we've expressed how we feel, we say, but God, I trust you. God, I'm grateful for this. God, I'm grateful for that. What if instead of freaking out, we trusted him with every single circumstance, no matter how it looked? How would our lives be different? When we don't trust in him, it's bad for our mental health. It's bad for our physical health. If we go back to the ballroom dancing analogy, it just turns into a disaster, right? If we're not good followers, it just turns into a disaster. But what if we kept our mind on God, trusted in him? This verse says we'll have perfect peace, right? And we see that with Paul's life. When he was in prison, he was content. Think about it. Perfect peace. That is just such a gift to have perfect peace. And all we have to do is to be stubborn about trusting in God, to stand firm and trust in God no matter our circumstances. I'm just so grateful that, going back to what happened with this book that I'm writing, what if I was just so determined to publish the book when I had 14,000 words? What if I had hired an editor and I had missed out on those 6,000 extra words that God wanted to give me for the book? Either I would have discovered later, hey, I want to make this book longer, I have more ideas, and then I'd have to get it edited again, or this book would have just been missing the 6,000 words that were supposed to be in there in the first place. So this is what I've really been trying to do. I've been trying to remind myself throughout the day, no matter what happens, to trust in God. There are so many reasons. There are so many things that happen throughout the day. We hear bad news on the news. We hear bad news from someone else. Something happens with our kids. Something happens with our health. Something happens with our job. A coworker is annoying. Someone on the road is annoying. A tragedy happens to someone at church. Or you might be going through something really hard right now, something that's causing you a lot of anxiety or stress. What if instead of just going into our normal pattern of anxiety and worry and all that, what if we were so stubborn and just asked God for help and said, God, I really want to trust you. Would you just help me trust you more? Would you increase my faith? I wonder what would happen in our lives if we just did that today, or we just did that tomorrow. We did it for a week. We did it for a month. We put this verse, Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. What if we put that on our fridge or in our phone, somewhere where we could see it and remember it? How would our lives look different if we kept our minds on God and we trusted in God? We would have that perfect peace, and our lives would be just such a beautiful example to the world. It would show the world that God is alive. God is doing amazing things. It would show the world that they can have peace in the midst of the craziness going on in the world, that no matter what, we can have perfect peace in our lives. And that's because of Jesus. I'm so glad that you took the time to listen today. If you liked what you heard, will you leave me a review on Apple Podcasts so that this show can reach more people? And if you want to connect with me, go to herholistichealing.com. Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls.
For you, it's easy and my burden is light.